speaking of deliberately, there have been some accusations that ABC, the Disney-owned channel, were quite deliberate in who they wanted to come out on top in a recent debate. And to that end, there even was an alleged whistleblower that came out and basically accused ABC of having done a number of actions to rig the results in a certain direction, and by an anonymous tipster releasing an affidavit, which allegedly is stated to be before the debate. Now, we on the outside, we have no evidence of this. We cannot say if this is something that was written after the debate and therefore is a perfect match, or if it was written before, because we have not yet seen any public evidence of the evidence which is claimed in the affidavit, because that has to come from third parties. But Andrew, you know more details about this. What can you tell us about this ABC whistleblower thing, and if there is some validity to it? As of right now, it is just alleged. But if the alleged goes to credibly accused, what would come of it?
Okay, so let me see some interesting stuff in the background here. So when I started looking into this issue, and this is still a developing issue, more information's coming out, right? So a lot of this is, like you said, allegations. But one of the interesting facts here is this year, things didn't go through the nonprofit corporation they typically go through to handle presidential debates. Typically, presidential debates are handled by the Committee on Presidential Debates, the CPD. But because of disagreements with the presidential candidates and the CPD in the past, this year they said, you know what, screw them. Instead of going through the CPD, we're just going to bilaterally, i.e. between the Trump campaign and the Biden campaign, bilaterally agree to 2 debates. We're going to come up with the terms, which, let's be clear, the terms of the debate were actually proposed mostly by the Biden campaign, which Trump consented to, right? But amongst those things was choosing the folks that would run them, one of which being Disney-controlled ABC. So instead of in the past us being able to turn to this committee and saying the committee screwed up, in this case, we may actually have potential breach of contract or breach of some sort of agreement, because you have this bilateral agreement. And then you have this third party, which was supposed to be a neutral party, but in fact may have been acting in bad faith and colluding with, as it seems in the whistleblower account, with the Biden-Harris campaign, and thus kind of breaching what would be an implied position of neutrality. So this is very interesting, and there could actually, if this thing plays out, even be potential liability on the line here. But that said, what we have an affidavit that says exactly that Disney-controlled ABC has a strong bias and an active bias against the Trump campaign. They went into this with an active mindset of, we are doing everything we can to censor Trump, to hit Trump on this. And this is something we're going to do with malice, with malicious intent. So this is something that is very, very big. Now it is still coming out. Obviously, a lot of people have denied this is real, have said this affidavit is bunk, this affidavit is BS, this is garbage, this is Trump complaining because he quote unquote lost the debate, although that's very arguable. But yeah, we've got a lot of statements here which are clearly tilted against Trump. And we've known for a while, look, if all of us, we follow Disney, right? I've followed Disney for the last 3 years. I think if I asked any of you guys, it's clear. If I said, what is Disney's political bias? I think we all know what that is.
Yeah.
It's 100%. Also worth mentioning that the woman we see on screen right now, which we are about to hear a very telling quote from, this is the presumptive next CEO of Disney, and she's a personal friend of Kamala Harris. Like very tight. Oh, she introduced her.
I did not know this. Okay.
Just like the one Kamala moderator. Yeah. Just like the one moderator is also one of her sorority sisters. So yeah, this was basically the straight question asked, was there a bias? And she doesn't give a straight no answer.
Got to talk about Kamala Harris. Obviously, the far right has come after you.
Yeah, far right.
The far right.
Far right. What do you say to them?
I really don't want to dignify it with much of a response. I have the highest regard for everyone at ABC News. It's the most professional organization, the most top-notch.
I don't hear a no in there. Do you guys?
Yeah,
No.
Andrew, as
There's
a
no
professional man of the law, whenever you hear someone say, "I do not want to dignify this accusation with a response," I mean, in your experience, innocent people say something like that? I mean,
that is a complete corporate statement. It's a corporate deflection of a guilty party. That is an admission that there is a bias, because once again, you would just say, all of us, look, we're human beings. Like, we're normal people just talking to each other.
Even if you're lying, you're going to say no.
Right. You just start, like, why would you not start the statement and say, we are professional and unbiased? But at this point, the crazy thing is, and the reason why I'm just laughing through all this, I laugh at all of this as the world burns, is because we all know the mainstream media has. This is why you guys are listening to us. It's why you guys tune into Endymion, Tom, and Andre, because these people are not being honest with you. They're just literally lying to you and pretending that you're going to keep taking it and taking it and taking it. And they've been doing this for nearly a decade now. And this is just yet another straight up lie. But she actually doesn't even have to lie. She just avoids the question, saying, "I will not comment." I mean, that's about as close to talk to my lawyer as you can get from
pretty much. It's no comment with insult added.
Speaking of insults added and all that business, we have a traveling man here, Mr. Paul Chato, on the road.
Hey.
Are you there, Paul? He was there. He's not there now.
Yeah, he's a very traveling man. So
there he went. There he went
until he shows up again.
I didn't even have to take him off. He just went. So his phone must have died on us. But clearly there's a bias here. Now, from my memory, it's a fuzzy memory because it's been like 20, 25 years-ish. Isn't there certain laws that were kind of being broached or broken here with this whole political thing?
What's interesting is because they're not going through the committee, right? The normal rules might not have applied. And I don't know what sort of agreement. But what I'm really fascinated by is, did Trump do this on a handshake and a phone call? I can actually see Trump, like, to be honest, because look, I'm very fair with Trump, right? He gets some things right, but some things he's a little silly on. And one thing is just, taking people at their word, and people saying, yeah, we're totally going to do it that way. And then they screw him and then they don't do it that way. So I would hope he has something in writing about this. And I hope they had some sort of contract regarding these debates, some sort of agreement, because then the most epic thing would be a breach of this agreement and any discovery that might come out of that. And certainly, if they're going into certain territory, this could be investigated by Congress. We could have hearings on this. This could be something that's got some meat on its bones there. When it comes to the electoral process. And of course, mind you, we've got one side that is constantly saying there is no interfering, there is no bias, but we all know that the emperor has no clothes.
Yeah, they're lying 100%.
Yeah, that's the facts. 100%. So Disney basically owning ABC is playing a part of this. And, they politically, we know how they stand.
Bob Iger, who at one point was going to run for the Democratic, presidential slot. Like, that was his objective, right? This is not ambiguous. So, I mean, obviously, despite the fact that they've calmed down in Florida, they haven't done that on a national stage or with their corporate messaging in general, because they've still got Bob Iger.
Indeed. And Iger, as I'm sure Paul on the roads would agree, is a complete and total apparatchik. But hey Paul, how's it going in the great outdoors?
Yes, I would agree. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yep.
Yep. Absolutely. So
I'll take my camera off.
Glad to see you there in the background. But before we move on to the next topic, well, we still have you two gentlemen here, plus Paul, but he's traveling. If this affidavit turns out to be real, because this tipster, this whistleblower, said in the affidavit to prove that this is real and that this is being sent before the debate. And this is something which is ignored by the Young Turks and everyone else who claims that this is just bullshit, it's a hoax. He claims,
does that surprise anybody,
that this
Young
has
Turks?
been sent by post and has done all these other things to prove that this was sent before the debate. And these are things which are provable, and I would also imagine that the recipients will know the name and exact title of this whistleblower. So let's just assume that this is not a hoax, that this indeed is accurate, that there will be Senate hearings and everything like that. This smells to me a lot like election interference.
That's where I was coming from,
yeah. What kind of repercussions could this, if things were to escalate, have for Disney and for ABC?
Well, they would obviously and all of this is predicated on, and I want to be very careful on how I say it.
Of course, pure hypotheticals and allegedly and all that.
Let me say this real carefully. It's predicated on a Justice Department that we can trust. Let me just point this out. There's a reason why I talked about this before with Andre. There's a reason why DeSantis, with the Trump second assassin, is looking into this privately in a state investigation and refused to turn over certain things to the FBI, because if the FBI and certain justice elements are currently literally trying to put Trump in jail, the exact same people are perhaps not the best to investigate whether or not there was a bias executed by people in favor of the current administration and the current vice president. Perhaps those people aren't the best people to be looking at this, right? Perhaps you need an independent eye. And frankly, you're not going to get that at a federal level until next year if the election goes a certain way, right? So election interference will come to nothing if excuse me, I said Biden. I meant Kamala is reelected.
You were right the first time.
Yeah, it's all the same shit, anyways.
So I have a question for legal then. Yeah, who do you actually think is going to win, like genuinely?
To be honest, I have to be very careful because of YouTube and what I can say here, but I think that in a world in which all of the real people go out and vote in America in a very, very, very fair, incredible, totally legitimate election, I think there's one person who should win. I'm afraid of any circumstances that make that not happen, right? And at this point, I give it a coin toss because you've got to have everything going right. You've got to have people watching. You've got to have people making sure everything is going A-okay. And also, we're not there yet. A lot of October surprises happen, and just wait for it. I mean, things have gotten crazier and crazier. We're now 0 for 2 in assassinations. Who would have ever thought that assassinations would become normalized in an American election cycle?
Wasn't there just today like something to do with a car bomb, something like that? I did read about it very briefly.
And then we have the person who came to shoot up Mar-a-Lago also being a related. This is crazy, but it ties in with the Diddy story because apparently he was one of Diddy's male.
I said that, dude. I'm like, what the fuck? Like,
this is getting crazy. This is really getting crazy. So I don't want to make a call right now. I know which way it should go because everyone I've talked to is saying one thing, and I talk to people outside of my circle, and outside of like just a little bubble, right? And
I got to give the credit to one side here, though, because, look, I've seen this from all the angles for years. Coming from the left, I know how a lot of them think, too. Mm-hmm. And looking at this shit now, at least a lot of people that I know have been at least taking the whistleblower with a grain of salt, right? On the right. Now, if you reverse this, and this was a report coming out that somebody was biased with Trump, the left wouldn't even be bothered to be asking for any evidence. They just believe it wholeheartedly without taking anything in consideration at all whatsoever. But yeah, now all of a sudden we're conspiracy theorists, even though there's all sorts of fucking yarn here.
But Tom, that's because they control the fact checkers, they control the law enforcement, they control the administration at the highest level, they control the narrative, right? So when you are working from a different position from that underdog position, you have to be more careful because they're actively trying to discredit everybody. That's why we, even as content creators, have to work twice as hard because we don't have a party line. We have to independently verify everything we do by ourselves because we're all very independent people. I don't call up Endymion and I'm like, hey, bro, this is what I'm making my video on today. You doing the same thing, bro? Like, we don't do that. We like I say on my channel, we be our own judge, do our own research, do our own due diligence, right? And that makes us better people, that makes us stronger content creators, but it's a hell of a lot harder than just repeating the NPC party line. It's a hell of a lot.
Because that's one thing I will say about people on the right that I've known for the last few years is every time something comes up, well, where's the proof? Where'd this come from? What's the evidence? That's the first thing that usually comes out of somebody's mouth as opposed to the other side. Yeah. Yep. Paul, you're here. Let's hear you from you.
Yeah, let me pop in as a Canadian. Endymion is from Calgary, which might as well be America. So
I'm from Brampton, Ontario, but I live in Alberta. You're right. Yeah.
Oh,
so I'm from the East Coast where you are, but I live on the West Coast.
The Texas of Canada.
That's the Texas of Canada.
Texas to Canada.
Yep.
So
one of the only conservative places in Canada.
My perspective, from a Canadian perspective, I think it's sad that, first of all, no one should be trying to assassinate any president, okay, or any candidate, and no one should be cheering for that assassination. No one should be making jokes about them missing the opportunity. It's really depressing reading social media along those lines. And the other point is, I know there's an awful lot of people who don't care that ABC allegedly rigged this. They're cheering for the fact that it was rigged, like any way possible to destroy Orange Man, and so all morals, all ethics go out the window, and that's not good in the long run.
Indeed, it is not great. This clip was taken from Midnight's Edge in the Morning, which streams live every Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time on the Midnight's Edge main channel. There you can send in your live questions and comments before clips and full stream replays are uploaded to Midnight's Edge live archives. We are also on Twitter, Rumble, Odyssey and Facebook, so smash that like, help share, subscribe and join us.